Welcome to the Genomic Medicine information session. Before we start, we want to inform you that this session is being recorded and will be shared on the ICE YouTube channel, and the recording will be sent to all who registered for the event after the session. My name is Jennifer Marsh, and I'm an academic coordinator at the Institute of Continuing Education at the University of Cambridge, also known as ICE. Today in the panel, we have Kenny Langlands, our course director, Kivlan Obulu, our student representative, and enrollment and marketing support staff. This week, we'll be running a variety of online sessions to give you the opportunity to find out more about our master's programs at the Institute of Continuing Education. Course information sessions like this one, covering each course on our master's portfolio, will be taking place every evening, as displayed on the chart there. In addition to our live sessions, we also have additional video resources on our website, giving you further information on funding options, the application process, college matriculation, student support, and interview preparation. If you missed any of our sessions or are unavailable to attend these, then you can watch the recordings, which will be available on our website 24 hours after each event. Links to the events and resources are shared in the chat and will also be sent via email after this session. ICE was established 150 years ago in 1873, and we were the first university-led continuing education provider in the world. Today, we offer a wide range of courses to adult learners, including short online and residential weekend courses, international summer programs, and award-bearing part-time undergraduate and postgraduate qualifications like ours, covering a number of subject areas from archaeology to genomic medicine. We also act as the admitting body for all MST courses within the University of Cambridge, with our MST students becoming members of a Cambridge college upon commencement of their course. ICE is a place where professional networks are formed, friendships are made, and the transformative power of learning is recognized. So once you have accepted an offer with us, you will become a member of a University of Cambridge college, which will grant you the same level of support as full-time university students. As well as having access to standard college resources, you will be allocated a college tutor who is responsible for your welfare and pastoral support. And your college will confirm arrangements such as your university card, matriculation, and graduation events. We work with a number of different colleges across our MST courses. And for the MST in Genomic Medicine specifically, we work closely with Homerton, Wolfson, and Fitzwilliam colleges. You can state a preference for one of these colleges when you apply for the MST, but note that it isn't normally possible to become a member of another college unless you have a pre-existing affiliation with them. So again, for us, it's Homerton, Wolfson, and Fitzwilliam. So watch our information video, and the link will be in the chat for more information on our college partnerships and to hear from the colleges themselves. So what we'll be doing today is we will take you through what you can expect from the Genomic Medicine program specifically, introducing entry requirements, teaching style, module content, and assessment. You will then hear from our current Genomic Medicine student, Kivlan, who's also our course rep this year. And at the end of the presentation, our enrollment team will take you through what kind of support we can provide during your application. We have some reserved time at the end of the session to answer your questions, so please send us your questions for any member of this team via the Q&A box at the bottom of the screen throughout the whole presentation, and we'll pick that up at the end and answer them. I will now hand you over to my colleague, Kenny Langlands, who is the course director for the Genomic Medicine program.
Thanks, Jennifer. There's quite a lot of information in these slides. I'm not going to read through everything because it'll make for quite a dry evening. But these slides will be available afterwards if you want to go back and pick up on some of the details. Again, I think it's better if I pick up some of the highlights. And of course, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So this course was designed following a recognition by NHS England that if we were to effectively integrate genomic medicine into patient care, there would have to be a fairly major educational initiative to upskill the workforce. So the course was designed to allow the whole spectrum of healthcare professionals to gain the knowledge and understanding of contemporary genetics and genomics. They would then drive innovation in practice. And at the moment, we allow students to get a sense and understanding of best practice, but also a direction of travel. So again, thinking about how innovation in genomics will absolutely have a very positive effect on patient outcomes. The course existed since 2017. There are a number of stakeholders because it's incredibly important that our graduates can have a meaningful impact. So we work with the clinical school, who actually deliver most of the teaching. We work with the local genomics hub, who do the testing. The Sanger Institute, of course, have pioneered the analysis of complex information, and they're the closely linked European Bioinformatics Institute. Our teachers are absolutely working at the cutting edge of research, clinical practice. You'll get a real flavor of what can be done with these exciting technologies. And as I mentioned earlier on, we're trying to bring in the whole spectrum of healthcare professionals. So we have nurses, doctors, midwives, a number of healthcare scientists. So Kivlin's going to talk to you later on to give you her perspective. But we're also trying to increase the scope and encouraging those involved in the whole spectrum of genomic medicine through innovation, research, through to clinical practice. Again, the next slide, please. I won't go through the course in fine detail. This information is available on the website, but it covers a range of topics as an introductory module. We cover some of the basic informatics, the crunching of the data that allows us to go from genomes to clinically meaningful insights. We have a counseling skills module that helps with training individuals to work with the teams and members of the public to articulate complex and potentially life-changing diagnoses. There's an opportunity in the workplace module to investigate an aspect of genomic practice in your workplace. And then there's some specialist areas, like cancer has led the way with the deployment of innovative therapies. We have epigenetics, which is particular interest in Cambridge. Pharmacogenomics, obviously trying to understand why people respond differentially to different drugs, incredibly important. And we've all lived through the pandemic, and the genetics of infectious disease is incredibly important. So there's a modular structure. There are some core modules for those funded by NHS England. They're keen that they have the foundation course, do the informatics, so at least understand analysis pipelines, and also understand the breadth of fundamental techniques that are used to generate this data. But we try and provide some choice so you can design a course that meets your specific need. And you may want to complement this with a research project, in which case, if you do 8 modules, you can then do a substantive original research project, again, ideally in your place of work. If you don't have access to a research project, you can do an extra couple of modules and do a shorter literature review, again, allowing you to put your learning into context. Now, the next slide, please. I won't go through all of the team. I mentioned earlier on, this is absolutely led by practitioners. The introductory course is led by Gemma Chantatilika, who's a geneticist, who's also the training lead locally for the network of hubs that actually do the testing. We have Tim Hearn, who's a geneticist, researcher, bioinformatician, based at the clinical school, who leads on informatics, and he's involved in some other modules as well. I lead the workplace module. Because all of the modules are led by teams of dedicated individuals who are experts in that field, who can then bring in contacts to make sure that the teaching is rich and timely. So again, you'll see a whole range of individuals delivering the teaching over the course of your studies. The next slide, please. So the method of teaching is quite an intensive one. It's been designed this way so that busy professionals can carve out some time to dedicate to the studies. So the individual modules are delivered as intensive 1-week blocks. They run from October through to May. And again, when you think about your choices, you might think about how you allow the modules to work with your work patterns, which is again is something you need to think hard about. The teaching is a mix of traditional large group teaching. We have workshops, we've got group projects, and we have practical classes. So again, it's an intensive week, and I spent quite a lot of time in a sort of fairly traditional classroom, but you'll get to meet and network with a range of individuals. So again, I think it's important to understand that sort of fairly intensive mode of delivery. At the end of the module, you'll have a month to complete an assignment, which is often in the form of some sort of a report or longer piece of writing, which will be the equivalent of about 3,000 words. So again, you'll have a month to deliver or to prepare and submit the assignment. The next slide, please. So I mentioned earlier on, there's an opportunity to do either a literature review, or if you have access or you're involved in a larger piece of ongoing research, you can do a more substantial, original piece of work. And again, I think it's worthwhile thinking about this before you join us. If you're not sure about your ability to get involved in research, you might want to think about 10 modules plus a literature review. If you're embedded in a hub, if you're involved in research projects, then you might want to think about 8 modules and then doing that original piece of research, which will allow you to put your learning into context. And we hope that you'll have a local supervisor, but the university will provide you with a supervisor as well, just to make sure that your work meets our expectations. And the dissertation runs, the proposals are due in the end of February, and then there's approximately a 5-month period from March through to July, where the work for the dissertation or the literature review will be undertaken. Right, on the next slide, please. So there are a number of ways of studying. We've tried to design it in such a way that you can pick and choose a mode of study or a route through the course which suits your personal circumstances. It may be you just want to do one module to learn about cancer genetics, cancer genomics, for example, and the opportunities are just to turn up and monitor the course, see what's going on. And so you're doing it for continuing professional development, or you can do you can sit an individual modules assessment and get some credit for that. If you don't want to commit to the full MST, you might want to think about doing 4 modules and register for a certificate. And by registering for 8 modules, you'll be eligible for a diploma. And for the full MST, you'll be looking at your 8 to 10 modules plus another 30 or 60 credits, which would be the more sort of research focused. But again, we've tried to build in as much flexibility as possible. Thanks. Well, the next slide, please. So if you do take the certificate option, then the option will be to, it's a competitive process, but potentially move on to the diploma and then onto the certificate, doing over a period of perhaps 3 years, which might be a suitable way of doing it. If you do the MST, that takes place over 2 years, so it's a little bit more intensive. But what we don't want in Cambridge is students picking a series of modules over a period of time and then combining them into a qualification. If you do want to, if you sign up for a module, but then decide you want to then move on to the diploma, the certificate, one of the award-bearing routes, you want to make that decision quite quickly, because you can only take one module forward into the PG cert. You could do 2 modules and take those onto the PG dip, and or into the MST. So if you were to do 2 modules and then join the PG cert, we could only give you credit for 1 module. So the reason for that is we don't want students to take a series of modules. We want you to think about a more structured program of study. Thanks. Next slide, please. So if you're applying for an individual module or continuing professional development, these applications are taken on a rolling basis, and you could sign up for a course about a month before it closes. It can be fairly flexible. We used to have a single deadline for the MST, which now has been brought forward until April. But we found that a number of students were sitting in office for quite a long period of time. So what we're doing this year is we're going to have 2 batches. We'll make some offers in January, but another set of offers we'll make in April. But we won't fill the course in January. So if you don't apply to the January deadline, there will be space in April. But it's really, again, we've historically had people sitting in the system for quite a long time who may have decided to go on and join another course. So it helps us with planning numbers and thinking about if we're going to be putting people forward for NHS funding, for example. So Jennifer, is there anything else we need to add there? I mean, I guess it's got a lot of information buried in there.
I think it's just a lot to unpack because we have so much flexibility within the program. If you're ever not sure how you personally could kind of navigate through, it's definitely worth checking with the enrollments team. Or if you're already a student on the program and you want to quote unquote upgrade, you can always talk to my team and we can advise you and make sure that you choose what's right for you. I think really the only thing to add here is that the course is designed to be flexible, and we definitely want to have people utilize the things that they learn in their place of work right away.
Thanks, Jennifer. So can I have the next slide, please? So this course was commissioned by, it was Health Education England, who now have been absorbed in NHS England. So a little bit confusing terminology, we still talk about HE funding. So the funding is not within our gift. We recommend students who are eligible, those who work for the NHS, we put them forward for funding. So there's a very good chance that that at least some of your studies will be funded by NHS England. But it's also worth thinking about other sources of funding as well, in addition, because NHS England are quite keen to get as many people as possible on the course, and they're looking for us to diversify sources of funding. And again, we will make these slides available, so these links will be accessible. Oh, can I have the next slide, please? So just quickly, before I'm sorry, Kit, I know you're sitting desperate to say something. I realized one thing I did miss out, and you prompted me, Jennifer, was the admissions criteria. So effectively, we're looking for people who have got a 2-1 in a biological science or a medical degree. But if you don't have a 2-1, if you've got a 2-2 or equivalent experience, we will take that into account. So if you think you meet the standards for a postgraduate degree, please talk to us and we can advise about the route that you might take. Sorry, Kivlin. Kivlin is our student rep and is going to say a little bit about herself and her experience on the course, I hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kenny. Yes, so my name is Kivlin, and I'm a student on the Genomic Medicine course. I'm a part-time student, and I also work at the local East Genomics Laboratory Hub in Cambridge. And so I applied to the course, and it's been phenomenal for me so far. And that's why I decided to actually be a course representative, because it was something I not really heard about so much, or at least gotten so much information about. So I'm really happy for sessions like this and for my role to be able to reach out to students and talk more to them about the reality of the course. And in me choosing the course, it was between this course and another program. But I kind of I like that Kenny says you should plan ahead as much as possible, because when you're doing this career development, you sometimes might be confused as to where to go, how to go, but these things are put in place to sort of help you create that path. So if you see it as a building block like I did, it's something phenomenal. So I'm a scientific support officer. I work in cancer whole genome sequencing at the moment, and this MSD will help me move on to registration eventually as a clinical scientist, because it actually is a master's, and you need a master's now in order to apply for registration. And it's the perfect course to apply for clinical scientist registration, if you've got a genomic medicine course in a master's form, or if you've even done modules and if you already have a master's but you just pick some modules to do, it's just really wonderful. And so far, I've been able to actually interact with pathologists and sometimes doctors that you already work with. So from a part-time MSc student perspective, because I also work in the lab, I actually gotten to interact with people that have got different expertise to me, but also we interact in very different ways. I can learn from them and they can learn from me. So that's some of the things I found on the course. And yes, it is something intense and something you probably have to prepare and structure your life around. I personally think it's great that you've got all the teaching in 1 week and then you've got time away to do the assignment, and there's loads of support surrounding that. And so that's something you can expect, but it's all just planning ahead, and it's not something to be picked just because maybe you're in the NHS and why not. It's something to be picked because it's part of your long-term plan, or it's a building block or something to help you along your journey in genomics. So yeah, thank you so much.
And Kivlin, if I may add one thing, you hit on that a little bit, and I want to highlight it, which is our cohort of students, because they all work in the field. They come from a variety of backgrounds. We try to diversify that. And it's such an important and vital part of our program. Every intensive week, we do build in 2 coffee breaks each day. And at these coffee breaks, everyone talks to each other, and I can overhear the conversations, not necessarily understand them, but it is really lovely to, there's not just the expertise of our really fantastic speakers and module leads, but there's also the expertise of the students sharing, building networks, continuing hopefully beyond the program as well.
Absolutely. And actually in one of the modules, when they've talked through everything and people have been asking questions, those are times where you get to then on the coffee breaks talk to the person, oh, you asked this, so what's the background on that, and do you have any more information on that? And then you get to know that this is this person's world. So I think that's really, really great, Jennifer. Thank you for mentioning that as well.
Right, so I think we can move on to this slide exactly. So the enrollment team is available to help you with any questions you have about the genomics program more generally. So Kate is in the Q&A answering questions for us this evening. So if you have any questions, do pop them in. Kate and her team can help you select the right course and to provide advice on eligibility requirements and the application process. If anything really complex comes along, she refers it to me and Kenny, and we can pick it up too. If you haven't got around to putting your questions in the live Q&A this evening, so you can scan the QR code on the slide and it will take you to our inquiry form. And from there, you can put any questions to the enrollments team, or you can also email them using questions@ice.cam.ac.uk. That's that email linked there. If you are an existing student or have already submitted your application, you can feel free to get in touch with the genomics admin team directly. And if you have any questions about the progression routes, for example, or to discuss funding as it relates to your application. All right, so now we are actually at the Q&A section. So one of the questions is, what are the other students like? So you can maybe both chip in here, Kenny and Kivlin, and just say really where students come from. We have a range of different programs. We have the PG certificate, we have the PG diploma, which tends to be kind of smaller. It's mostly people who progress from the certificate and then onto the MST. And we have MST students. We have 12 certificate students this year, I think 12 new MST students and 8 second-year MST students, and then a handful of diploma and other flexible students. And the students really have a variety of backgrounds, which I said is what makes it so rich. But Kenny and Kivlin, do you want to talk about who some of the people are who we have?
Well, so very briefly, historically, we've taken doctors, nurses, people who work in the lab hubs. More recently, we've broadened it to have those involved in research, pharmaceutical industry, people involved in fundraising. It's a whole range of individuals, a real interesting mix. But I think Kivlin can give you the first-hand experience of what it's like when you're in a room with these people and opportunities to network and make these new links.
Thank you, Kenny and Jennifer. So, the students are very different, and for me, it was most surprising that quite a number of students had even traveled from abroad. We have quite a number of people traveling internationally to come and do the course, and for me, it made me appreciate that a lot. In terms of the kind of different backgrounds, I think, like Kenny says, there's really a variety of backgrounds: GPs, nurses, people in research, people who have maybe done other parts of masters before, done other things, but they just really interested in genomic medicine. I spoke to one of the students who wanted to set up his own, I think something like Illumina or something like that, and I was like, wow, that's huge. So people have different dreams, different goals, different walks, and it's something you've got to get in the course to then interact with people and get to find out, the different backgrounds and how you are able to interact with them in the end of things, and perhaps even collaborate. So that's what I would say.
Let's see, one thing I didn't mention, of course, is that this course is a very rich course with the individuals who've joined us and a number of different ways of studying. We also have a parallel MPhil course, and the students are taught together. And the students on MPhil, they're a different group again, and Kivlin will have interacted with them. Many of those have been to med school or they're intercalating. They're doing it more from I think generally speaking, thing of going into medicine more of a research perspective. So again, it's a whole different strand of different backgrounds coming together with the medics and the healthcare professionals.
Yes, so on the back of what Kenny was saying, I actually think sometimes people have even deep expertise in particular modules, and I find that they're really open to come and help, or to just say, oh, I'm very good with computers and bioinformatics because maybe that's what I was working in, and they're just able to show you this is what you should do. And so it's really, really diverse and interactive. So yeah.
And just to clarify even further, is that, like Kenny mentioned, so we have the MPhil and there's also an MRes full-time program that if you're interested in full-time study, you can certainly also go that way and look at that program. But so those students are taught concurrently, which means our program is in partnership with the clinical school. The PG certificate, the PG diploma, and the MST are the part-time options. The MPhil and the MRes are the full-time options. All of these pathways share the same modules, and the students pick and choose their pathway through. So you are with different people in each module, and it's maybe from as few as 15 students to as many as 50 students on a module, or actually 60 for the intro module. So it can be kind of strange because you have different co-students or a different cohort each time you're in a module, but it is also, like Kenny and Kivlin said, really rich to meet all these individuals and learn from them and to have those conversations. So I have another question here, which is, when are the modules? So I'm very happy to take that because that is part of my job, to schedule when the modules take place, where they take place, and make sure that all the admin around that works. So when you click on any of the courses that you might be interested in applying for, you'll have an indication of when the modules usually take place. As Kenny said earlier, the modules run between October and May each academic year. If you're in the PG Cert, you're taking your 4 modules in 1 academic year. If you're in the PG DIP or the MST, you're taking your 8 modules over 2 academic years. And we can always advise you of how you're sort of choosing them and arranging those. The modules generally take place in the same month, plus minus a week each year. We're currently still confirming the dates for 25-26, so the final dates will be updated soon. But what we have on the courses is an indication of when they are. So we have the introduction module in October, early October, and that is the first module that all new students must attend. And then after that, it's up to you with some, some asterisks depending on how you are funded potentially and what you're planning to do with the modules, how you then work your way from October to May, or potentially then through a second academic year. All right, so another question is, will I be able to work at the same time as attending this course? So again, if you're a full-time student, probably not, but if you're a part-time student looking at the course from the ICE lens, yes. Kivlin, do you want to speak to how you manage that?
Absolutely. So I believe there's lots of support on what we call the VLE for those who are integrated with the university, and certainly more support with ICE as to how you can manage your time and how to structure yourself with work and study. But from doing it in a personal kind of way, I have found that it's all just planning ahead and allocating time. So I do something which is called compartmentalizing, which is just taking blocks of time and just saying, I'm going to dedicate this time for family. I'm going to dedicate this time to just do my assignment. And actually, if you do a little bit from when you get the assignment, for example, because that's really the big thing. When you're doing the studying, you go for the whole week, you get your study leave for that week, so no need to worry about that. But when you're doing the assignment, this is where the balance comes in. And it's just starting from when you get it, start a little bit every day or every, in that week, just schedule days where you're going to just focus on your study to understand the material, to understand the assignment, ask questions early, and then, what I found talking to colleagues and different people is that sometimes it's being left to the last minute, and that's what really causes pressure. And if you're like, oh, have you started yet? No, but I'll do it. And in your mind, it's doable within a week. But I mean, if you really want something out of the course, then you've got to put the effort. But it's not so much intense because of the timing. It's just how much you leave, how much time you leave for yourself to be able to manage it.
And I would like to add that as part of the application process, one of the conditions, if you are admitted to or if we sort of say we would like to offer you a place on the course, then there's some conditions set. And one of the conditions is to receive a statement of support from your line manager, which indicates that you have discussed your plan to study with your place of work, and that study leave will be put in place that is adequate. And obviously, things do change sometimes. A lot of our students are active doctors, and shifts change, and there is some flexibility built in, and we're always happy to talk to people. There's an extensions process. There's some ways that we can support students who are in unforeseen difficulties, but in general, people do muddle through. All right, so there is obviously, as always, a question about HE funding or NHSE funding. I think they have been in the process of rebranding for a while. But if you look at the link that was linked on that slide, I think it still refers to HEE, but it's known both ways. So NHSE funding and HEE funding. So what exact parameters are that you need to be working for the NHS England, sorry, not Scotland, and you then there are some parameters that they put in place of how exactly they would determine eligibility. I think, for example, we have worked out in the past that sometimes bank staff are not eligible, but we don't make the decisions about who is eligible. You can look on that linked website and find out, kind of click around a little bit and see more about what they say. If you're very confused, you can also ask our enrollments team, and they can send you a response I've put together about that, about eligibility. So when you apply for HEE or NHSE funding, because we're a commissioned course, they give us some money every year that we can distribute amongst our students to fund them partially or fully. And the mandate is here to serve as many students as possible who are eligible. And the process is a little different from other funding, which is why it routinely makes the admissions process sometimes feel a bit onerous, because you have to apply to the program first and be offered a spot. And then I can put you forward to HEE after I've checked your eligibility, and I think you're probably going to be successful. So if I see an applicant who works, for not the NHS, I'll say, maybe we should check that. So in your application, if you think you might qualify, do indicate that you wish to apply for HEE, and that will be my prompt if we offer you a spot that I will discuss with you to put you forward. And it's unfortunately also very much up in the air, because we only receive notification of our funds to give out any year about in the summertime. So I don't know yet how much money we have available next year, but our aim is to distribute it as fairly and evenly as possible, and to obviously make the biggest impact within the workforce that we can. So again, I think if I try to say anything more specific, it just gets confusing because it is a very custom process for each student. You end up having to choose your modules as well, and then you get put forward for all the modules you've chosen. So it is complex, but I'm very happy to discuss it with you, and I'm the one who manages that process. So it's totally doable, right, Kivlin? We can do it. I know we had a whole bunch of back and forth about the HE funding, but in the end it worked out. So yeah. All right.
And it's best not to overstress about it because it does just figure itself out.
Or rather, I figure it out.
Yes, leave stressing to someone else.
No, it does work out usually, yeah. So a question is about sort of saying a little bit more about the admissions criteria again. So maybe Kenny, you can talk a bit more about that.
So if you think about so most healthcare professionals, other than doctors, will have done an honours degree in some point in their study. And even if you work in the lab hubs, like Kivlin, for example, you'll have a Bachelor of Science degree. So we're looking for a 2-1, and otherwise, a medical degree from a recognised institution. Most of our graduates studied in the UK. So it's really as simple as that. If you've got non-standard, or if we've had students in the past who've got a 2-2, for example, they may have studied overseas, and we're not sure about the institution or the grade of the degree. But if they have experience in the UK working in a cognate field, such as genomics, some kind, then we'll absolutely take that experience into account. And we have an interview process as well. So I think one thing that's worth mentioning is when you're applying, we do want to understand why you want to study with us. Make your case, because we get quite a lot of fairly generic applications. They don't show us why you want to study this program, because it is competitive. So again, 2-1 in the subject, cognate to science, medical degree, or a medical degree. And if you don't meet those criteria, then come and talk to us. If you have equivalent experience, then we can take that into account, particularly if you made a good case for why you want to join us.
A follow-up question is, what about international students? So indeed, you can, try to find out what you can about what is an equivalent to a UK 2-1, which is something I had to find out too. But you can submit an application, and then as part of the application process, our admissions team has a whole process that they administer professionally of sort of looking at the equivalency and then ensuring that whatever degrees you have in your name from a foreign institution, that they get accredited in the correct way, or sort of translated in the correct way. So that's beyond our expertise, but we do have a whole team of admissions staff who that's part of their job to ensure that we know what the background of an international applicant is. And we do have a fair amount of international students each year on the course, some of whom some of whom have international background but already live in the UK. And then it's a question of our admissions team seeing how that impacts on the fees. It's sometimes not as straightforward as it seems, but I know that submitting an application is not necessarily free, and it also takes time. But putting an application in is your way to see where it ends up and to see if all the requirements are met, and to sort of engage our admissions team in that conversation with their level of expertise, and to sort of get one step closer to an offer. All right. So there is another question about, is it absolutely compulsory that you attend in person? And the answer is yes. Alas, it is all in person. We do record lectures, but that is because the university in general wants to record lectures as a sort of access issue, and sort of ensure that people who have some adjustments in place for disabilities potentially have that as a backup. And we do make it available to the whole cohort, because we know the modules are so intense. Even if you don't have a disability adjustment in place, it might be quite helpful sometimes to watch those back and say, okay, what actually happened today? I had 8 lectures, 45-minute slots from a whole bunch of professionals. My head is reeling. Let's go back and watch that. But that does not mean that you are excused from attending in person. The attendance is required. International students actually have, well, for the full-time program, the international students have attendance as part of their visa requirement. We do not issue visas for part-time students because it is absolutely possible to come in for just a week and then leave again. And that is okay with the International Student Office, so to speak. So there's a lot of work there, but it is possible to make the time, and employers in general are supportive of people taking the time off to come in person and to attend in person. And again, you can choose the modules to fall in a way that works for you, both professionally and personally. All right, so we don't have any further questions, but Kivlin and Kenny, if there's anything else you would like for people to really walk away with thinking.
Okay, then have a look at the information. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask. I think it's rather me trying to anticipate what you're thinking. Rather than make any assumptions, come and talk to us and we can set you on the right track quickly.
Yeah.
All right.
I think there's not much. I think we've covered everything, but I would say that just enjoy the application process, enjoy when you get through into the modules and everything, and just have a purpose with it. Don't just, because it will pull you through when it becomes intense and assignments are hard, or whatever happens, you have a goal in mind ahead. So that's what I would say.
You're making it sound really scary, Kivlin.
It's not scary. I just think that if you say like you're a nurse and you want to go into this position and that's what you're rooting for, I think it would make you like, okay, I'm just going to try my best with this assignment, as opposed to, oh, it's free, it's funded, so why not do that module? Yeah.
Indeed, it is designed as a upskilling course for professionals. And obviously, there's also non-NHS professionals who come in and who enrich the course with their expertise and their backgrounds. But that is how it was funded and where the funding is. And it is very much a desire to educate and enrich that workforce with some, positive side effects, I guess.
Just to mention that it was commissioned by NHS England, and those who work for the NHS are eligible to apply for funding. But we have a number of self-funded students as well, and students funded by other means too. So it's not exclusively designed for those in the NHS. They are the core of this, but I think it's bringing in that broader range of individuals who contribute to genomics that makes the course exciting.
And actually, I should pick up this funding question one more time, because Kenny did mention also to explore alternative sources of funding. And just to put that flea in your ear, if you're thinking of submitting an application and you are serious about it and you are having those conversations with your employer, as you possibly should at this point, to see if they would even support an application or a potential admission into the course. That's also a good time to actually talk about funding from your employer. We have a number of students who are funded fully or partially by their employers. Employers are actually quite happy often to put money towards this as a development and for them to sort of upgrade their workforce. And so what you might want to talk about are professional development pots, or like upskill, like there's a variety of names, but often people have some money tucked away somewhere that they could, or like HR pots, like there's money that if you ask might be made available. And the earlier you have those conversations, the easier it is to get that application sort of all processed in lockstep. So you are never in a position that you don't really know how much money you might be spending on the course, which inevitably does sometimes happen. But, we try our best to make sure everyone knows what they're buying into, as it were. All right, so I think we're ready for the last slide, which is we are coming to the end of our session today. So thank you so much for joining us for this evening, and we hope you found the session informative. And we would love to hear your thoughts via our satisfaction survey, which will be emailed to you shortly. And as you can see here, there's a number of other sessions that are taking place this week for our health sciences courses. So those are colleagues we work with at ICE that deliver other MST level courses in roughly the same field. So if you're sort of just dipping into this field in general, you're not totally sure if genomic medicine is what you're actually looking for, do explore some of those other sessions as well tomorrow and on Thursday, potentially. And if you have any questions about those, you can also, again, email the enrollments team or pop a question in the chat. Thank you. Kivlin, one last thing.
I forgot to say, if you want to reach out to me, please, I'm available on LinkedIn, email. Just please reach out to the team and they should forward you on to me if you wanted an informal chat.
Thank you, Kivlin. That's very generous. All right. Well, I hope that was helpful. Thank you very much. We wish you a good evening.